Hi, friends, and welcome to episode 11 of the Stoked to Have You podcast. I'm Amy, and I am stoked to have you. So, today, I'm actually really excited to be talking about this. So, I wanted to talk about business decisions, which may or may not pertain to you. You may not own a business, but honestly, it's kind of a nice insight to owning a business or to making the decisions. Um, as I've gotten older and as I've worked many jobs, I've realized that a decision cannot be based on, well, one, it can't be based on feeling, which in my experience, a lot of times it is, where they're like, I feel like we could do this. Do not ever go on feeling. I think maybe there are some exceptions. However, data is always the way. Collect your data, get your numbers, know your demographic, and because it has happened. But one way I kind of look at it is as a peace sign. There's three pie pieces. And it should benefit your employees, it should benefit your customers, and it should benefit you. And for me, if it's, working in coffee, I've helped with, I've helped on the bakery side, I've helped on cafe side, I've helped manage places, and I love operations. I'm a huge fan. But one thing that I've realized is if a decision isn't benefiting each party, it's typically not the best decision. Because if it's only benefiting you and your employees, but something's missing out on the customer, each component is so important to the business. And what I do love now is that businesses have also realized I don't want to say the importance of employees. Here in America, very different than Europe, especially in a realm of coffee. In Europe, it's looked at as a career, food industry, it's a livable wage right off the bat. And that's why tips are very different there. They're not expecting tips. Whereas here, you're getting a much lower wage and relying on tips. So if you're making a customer unhappy, then by default, you're probably also making your employee unhappy, which by default is going to make your business unhappy. And time again, I've seen this where, and again, it's businesses have made decisions based on emotions, or I think it's going in this way, or trends. And trends come and go. That's also a thing. It's hard to catch things as they're taking off in order to really benefit from their peak, but then I've also seen I've seen things work out too. But so this little pie, over the years, I try to make them equal parts when, if I've been in the position of a manager or some type of management or upper management role. And every time it's beneficial. And also treating each other as equals, very important in a workspace. I've found that the best way to manage people is one, again, equal roles. Yes, I am in a management role, but my job is also just to make your job easier. And so whatever is going on, if something is wrong, you tell me and I will help fix it. Because if I can make your job easier and you're happier in your job, then customers are happier, business is happier. So again, that's a decision that I'm that pertains to all three parties. And oftentimes employees get overlooked. It's really sad. I recently, this just was bananas, and I won't use names, but I recently, before my current job, when I was interviewing, try new places, I went to one interview, and I even just walking into the place, it was a Chicago coffee shop, but even walking into it, I could tell the employees were just very unhappy. There wasn't really any customer service. I walked in, it kind of was like I got stared at until I said something. And, I'm like, hey, I'm here for a meeting. I thought I was meeting one person. A completely different person shows up. And I'm like, which is fine. That happens. Things happen. But I was like, nobody told me. The person, I was early to the interview, and the person like showed up, and mind you, I was like, I am early. I know I'm early. If they can see me early, that's cool. But they were like, no, that person left. We'll have to call someone else. And I was like, all right. So I'm sitting there, and then in comes this man sweating profusely. And I was like, you did not have to rush. I am so sorry. Like, I didn't mean like, and the interview process was one of the most unprofessional experiences of my life, where it was comical. Like, I left, literally, I was like, I feel like this is what comedy bits are made out of, is experiences like this, because comes in just and tells me they don't make tips. You make, I think it was like $17.50 an hour. And that's it. You do not make tips. Tips go to them, which I was like, that's kind of crazy. That is unheard of. First of all, $17.50 an hour. Like, if you're working at a busy coffee shop, which I don't know this coffee shop well enough to say that they're consistently busy, but I've seen them busy. And I was just like, oh, right off the bat, he's like, okay, this is how much you make. This is how many hours you'd get. It was like 20, 25. And I was like, I'm looking for full time. And then he was like, how old are you? When I tell you the look I must have given this guy, I was just like, are you seriously fucking asking me how old I am? Because that's illegal, by the way. You can't really ask. Like, you can ask people, like, for, if you're like hiring and like the onboarding, like on your actual like forms that you fill out, but like, you don't ask people how old they are. But that's, yeah, big no. And he did. He was like, and how old are you? And I'm like, 34. And he was just like, oh, great. Blah, blah, blah. He was writing all of this down on like a notepad. And I mean, just like wrote down the hours, wrote down how much I'd be making. I think which location I would be at, and then my age, and then was just like, okay, cool. I think we'll hire you. And I was just like, oh my God, I have to go. I must leave this place. This is not ideal for me. I mean, I'm prepared for, in what way have you, positively affected a customer in an interaction, things like that. And then this is just like very cutthroat. And I laughed, and I was like, I will absolutely not be working at this place. Like, the professionalism is completely out the window. And yeah, it really does put it into perspective. I'm like, oh, like, here's a place that clearly doesn't really value the people working there. And like, you get out the effort that you put in, truly, in any form of business. But I was like, if this is the effort you're putting into your interviews, then it's more than likely not going to be a challenge enough for me. Like this would be that I was like, that gig might be great for like a starter job. This is my first job, and actually, no, I mean, probably wouldn't. I'm going to be honest. Actually, it would probably be pretty bad. Like I couldn't imagine being in high school and getting a job like this really, really crappy coffee job, because there's so many wonderful coffee shops in Chicago that would teach you a lot of very valuable life lessons. And that's also a part of business. It's very Ted Lasso. It's like, we're teaching you how to be on the field and off the field. But like I've led teams and I don't want to say changing people, but encouraging good habits is very hard when people are set in their ways. And it's so important to answer why. Don't ever just be like, well, we're doing it like this because I said so. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not your, like, what is this, a 90s parent? Come on. Like, but it is important to be like, hey, our bar flow is going to go this way, or we are going to be, we're going to make sure we're cleaning things consistently. And it's like, well, we didn't have to clean them consistently before, and now that just takes more time. And it's like, true, but in the long run, it'll take you less time to clean at the end of the day because you're cleaning as you're going, or, hey, it's getting warmer out and gnats or, fruit flies like are attracted to sugar. If we make sure we keep everything clean, we lessen the likelihood of them, coming into our space. And there's often times where you're going to get friction from your employees because they're like, I don't want to do this. Some people are stubborn. But one, I love to work with people and challenge them. And oftentimes you can just kind of be like, hey, you're not doing your job. But as much as I have to explain a why, I also have to ask why. And so it's like, hey, we're implementing this new role, or we're implementing this new task, and I noticed that you've been blatantly ignoring it. What's going on? We're working as a team. We're working towards a collective goal. And when one person isn't in line with that, you got to check in, and in some cases they got to check out. I've seen too many times where people keep an employee and they're like, oh, like, I can help them. And it's true in some cases. It's not true in every case. I worked for a place a long time ago, and I remember they had this guy there for a while, and for a long time, actually. He was there for a long time. And they were like, we're going to give you more responsibilities. Now, he didn't ask for more responsibilities. I do think he asked for more money for the position he was in. And they were like, well, we're going to put you in a management role. And as wonderful as this human was, he wasn't really interested in management. And I think it was more of like, we're setting you up for failure rather than like looking at your strengths. We are going to create strengths. So instead of like, this person was very creative, I honestly think they could have been a great like creative marketing like director or like some sort of field like that for the business. But instead they were like, we're going to put you in a management role and you're going to deal with people. And like they, as much as they love people, it was not like it wasn't their strong suit. They were a little more lax on that. They were like, it's fine, oh no. And it's like when you're in a management role, you really need someone who's a bit more structured and who is okay with telling people no. That's a very, that's hard, but you got to be able to be like, nope, this is what we're doing. I think that's why I've always enjoyed it, because I go, it's not personal, it's business. I'm not telling you as the person you're a bad person for doing this thing. What I am saying is the business needs to be doing, we need XYZ for the business and for our jobs to run smoothly or to benefit our team or to benefit our customers. That's why I'm asking you to do something. I'm never asking you personally. And so, when people get upset, it's a friendly reminder of like, hey, this is my job. My job is to tell you, hey, we need to be doing this correctly, or we need to be doing this differently, or coming up with systems, or testing systems where it's like, hey, please allow some patience. We're trying something new. And it can definitely cause, a little bit of friction between employees. And yeah, but anyways, this guy that I had worked with, yeah, I remember it was just like eventually in the role, he just kept failing, like failing at the role. And it was like, hey, why aren't you doing a good job? And it's like, he's not doing a good job because he doesn't enjoy this job. He never wanted this job. And so seeing people set up for failure like that, I was like, oh, I would never want to do that. I want to see, what are your strong suits? What do you like? How do you want to grow? Is there growth? It's very important to also be honest about that. Like, is there an ability to grow in this business in the way that you want to? Or are you gonna just take, the experience that you have and then move on to a new place, which I've done time and time again. When I worked in retail in Atlanta for a little bit at a running store, at Fidipides, and I learned so much there. It was my first retail gig too, where I was like, oh, I'm like, it's very cliche of like, oh, I'm folding clothes all day, or I'm helping fit people for shoes, which, not gonna lie, it was so much fun. I had one time where someone had gross feet, but truly every other time it was fine. And also people are wearing socks and I'm not putting their shoes on for them, but I am tying them often. But I am so passionate about running, and I'm passionate about running, but I'm also a creative, and I loved that my employer saw that and was like, hey, would you be interested in social media? Like, would you be interested in like taking photos and being kind of like the little voice on social media? And I remember just being like, you mean I get to just post about running and take pretty pictures? Yeah, I want to do that. And it's that. It's seeing, oh, this person is creative, and they're taking initiative. They enjoy what they're doing. Let's give them a little more, and then also compensate them a little more, and see them flourish in that aspect. And then it came to a point where I was like, ooh, even the amount of money and the experience, I was like, I hit a ceiling. I was like, I really need more. I feel like I'm, I've grown too big for this box. And then it goes to a business where it's like, can I get a bigger box, or do I need to move on? And luckily I was able to move on. But I mean, everything I learned from that experience, I get to take with me. And it's really cool. I will say, because I don't have formal training or like formal education in business, like going to school. I went to a trade school. I learned massage therapy, and that was awesome, and it got me through, almost 10 years of my life where I got to work with athletes. It was so much fun. And I got to use that knowledge too when I, was fitting people or working with runners. And so I try to, everywhere I go, I'm collecting and adding to my tool belt. But because I don't have this formal business training, I've kind of just learned it along the way. So every job I've ever had, I'm like, okay, let me really get into this. Let me learn as much as I can. Let me ask the questions. especially in coffee, what I think is just the most fascinating thing about coffee or working in coffee is how different everyone's approach is. What is more important to you as a business owner? And I think if you hone in on that and you play up your own strengths as a business owner, is it the bakery side? Is it the bakery side and you're like, we make good coffee, but we really have some slam dunk, baked goods? Are we, or do we have slam dunk coffee and we just have, some snacks that we like accommodate that, but we really want to have a good cup of coffee, Or is it community? Are we very big in the community, and also have slam dunk coffee? Like, I feel like as a coffee place, you really do have to have good coffee. And you know what? Even though people crap on Dunkin', like, they have a pretty good business model, I'll be honest. And their coffee, if I go, I get just a black iced coffee. It's great. But it's great. That's it. It's fine. It's like, it gets the job done. It doesn't taste terrible. Like, it's fine. And so, but yeah, so honing in on, what makes you you, and don't be someone you're not. I think that goes for anyone in life. It's like, you can fake it till you make it in certain aspects, but only if that's true to yourself. Like, if I got to fake a little confidence today because I'm feeling down, it's like, I know I'm a confident person. Like, I guess that's actually not really a great example, but in business, don't say you're the best coffee guy and then you don't learn more about coffee, But anyways, so these three aspects, though, within a business: employee, business, and customer, super important that those pieces also remain equal. Because again, like, if it ebbs and flows within that pie chart, it's like, oh, well, we're benefiting as a business and, as our employees, but our customers are suffering. Or, you gotta create an environment that makes people want to be there. If this is like a come in and stay kind of place. But yeah, it's so much fun working. I swear, it's so much fun working in coffee. And the more I'm in it, the more I'm learning. And right now, I actually took a step down from like a management position, and I'm just barista. And to be honest, it's hard when you're like seeing a million different things, but I'm trying to be like, no, this is my job. I want to learn this job very well so that in the future I can help manage this job, because that to me is super important. Like, unless you've been in the shoes, you don't know what it's like. And for me, I'm a very empathetic person, and I want to understand what someone has gone through, and in order to kind of like understand the situation. But with coffee, it's like, I've been in almost every role. I've been in baking. I've been a bakery manager. I've been a barista, but a different type of barista. Like, I worked with an automatic machine, that you press a few buttons and it pulls a shot for you. Whereas now I'm working manually and I need to be dialing in. I need to be tasting coffee. I need to know how to taste coffee. I need to know which way do you turn the dial if it's too acidic and too salty or too sweet, or like, so it's refining my palate. It's refining my skills as a barista, my coffee knowledge, my patience, my problem solving skills. Because if you're in the middle of work and the temperature changes, it can start messing with your espresso, like things like that. And I'm like, oh, this is the stress that baristas are feeling. how can I make a job like that easier? Because like, if I didn't have this experience, if I didn't realize that, yeah, hey, the temperature in a space can affect your beans and can affect how everything is working, I'm like, oh, imagine how frustrating that is. And then having someone be like, what did you do? Or, well, it shouldn't be like this, like over your head. Not that I manage like that. I'm very like, what are we working with? And yeah, to me, it makes me feel more confident in managing because I'm like, oh, I've been in your shoes. I have been in this role. I've worked in slow pace coffee. I've worked in fast paced coffee. I've worked alone. I've worked with people. I'm myself. One thing I'm working on is working alongside someone new on the bar and being able to flow together. I had a moment the other day with my manager where we were just flowing and like where I could reach over or under and, he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, but I'm able to like move around him and then I like, I rinse something, hand it back to him where he hands me something and that flow state that you can reach and your drink's coming out under 2 minutes and like, oh, it's just so good. Like it's so good. I'm also working on listening now. So it's like hearing an order and starting it early because I'm working downtown. And, one thing I try to remember is that everybody's in a hurry. And if I can make a good cup of coffee or a great latte or like a solid espresso and they take a sip and they go, oh, that's so good. And they get just a moment of stoppage time. I've been watching a lot of World Cup. But if they get a moment of stoppage time where they're just like in it and present and taking that sip and wow, this is so good. I have done a great job and I am proud of that. But one thing is too, is like the moment you take money from someone, now they have an expectation and you kind of got to hurry, these people got places to go. And I value that very much of being able to learn and apply. And yeah, it's adding to your tool belt. I highly recommend it. And as a manager, if you're out there listening to this, or if you're even thinking about owning a business, think about each role individually and kind of put yourself in those shoes. If you can, work for someone else. See how other people manage because it's going to be very different, But, that's enough for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. And it is harder getting coordinating times with folks, I realized, to get more people on the podcast. So I do have some people on the calendar for interviews or for like talking. So those will be coming. But thank you guys so much for listening to little old me. And it's great having you. I'm stoked to have you. As always, have a great day, guys.